them on in their perfume labs some of the time, and they're actually making perfumes and pottering away in their perfumers' organs while they are listening.
Yeah.
So yeah, iris and violets though did go down well, and that was one where we were smelling irises and violet things, and then we were also smelling the perfume, so it gave people like a hint of how you actually go about this thing. I mean, there's so many things here that we could smell. I mean, I do want to do one about writing about perfume.
That'd be good.
But
today's topic of discussion.
Yeah, today's topic of discussion. Well, I hate to mention the word clean, because when I mention the word clean, I want to scream and punch people. And then I've said it. But there was this excellent piece, and it's on a website, and it's called Indie Beauty. And I'm signed up to this, so I get to read all the pieces. And what they did was, they didn't write editorially. They interviewed, I think, 20 different beauty companies and said, define clean beauty. Well, all 20 were different.
Yeah, that seems...
So they didn't even... They weren't even going to attempt to define it themselves, because it was... their point was, I think, to demonstrate that nobody is consistent. So you get people saying...
What does it mean? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It means...
we want our products to be clean.
Well, I mean, but by definition, don't put a product on if you want to be clean, because the minute you put a product on, you
have to wash it off again.
Yeah.
But they're generally talking about, I think, sourcing.
Right.
So it's because natural is now essentially meaningless. Organic means lots of different things in different parts of science. Because organic chemistry is just things that are made out of oxygen, hydrogen and carbon, so that's everything that pretty much we use in cosmetics and perfumery anyway. So then what are you supposed to do? Does it mean safe? Doesn't necessarily mean that, because lots of naturals are really scarily dangerous. So it's not even green. Green, has become... likewise very difficult to define. So clean is generally supposed to mean, I think, leaves the earth better than you found it, or at least doesn't do any harm. So, but how do you define that? Because are you looking at the people involved in the production of these things? Are you... How ethical is ethical? I mean, maybe we should talk about ethics then. Let's be serious. How can we be good? And there's a great book called How to Be a Good Ancestor, and it doesn't just your... It means, will you look back and think, yes, I helped to make it better. I helped in this way. Looking at things like cathedral projects. If I could remember the man's name, I'd say. Met him. But cathedral project, something like starting to build a forest. And you know that when you die, it's still only going to be that high. But it will be a forest. So things that are going to be finished after your time. So if, on a tiny scale, one is building a fragrance brand, then how do you look back and go, well, I helped. So one of the things that I like to do is not make anything unless somebody wants it.
Yeah.
We don't bottle something until it's ordered. And not producing 100,000 bottles of something which is, ecologically quite clean, but you're only going to sell 10,000 of them. What you're going to do with the spare 90,000? That's not actually good for the environment, even if the materials you sourced were not doing any harm. You've used up stuff that didn't need to be used up. So we start small. But the big companies are starting to produce some really interesting materials, and also letting you know how renewable they are and how biodegradable they are. So that's one way in.
Yeah, it is. People don't think about whether something is biodegradable or not in terms of perfume, something you spray on your skin, or like something that once you've sprayed it, it's invisible.
Yeah.
But it still needs to. But it still needs to break down, and it still needs to.
Yep, hasn't disappeared entirely. I mean, the amount of perfume that people use is relatively tiny. Fine fragrance is tiny compared to the amount of, say, washing powder that gets used every day by everybody, everywhere, almost,
or
especially
bug
your
spray.
flatmates. Shampoo. There's a lot of fragrance that goes out there in things which are other than perfume.
Yeah.
I've got old catalogues here at the moment. I've got the not that old. The 2016 catalogue from Firmenich and the Perfumers Company.
There it goes. That actually jumped out your hand then.
It did, didn't it? Look, it's shaped funny. How you're supposed to. So that is the Perfumers Compendium from Firmenich from. I've really messed that up. What is even happening? Ha! Okay. It jumped back together again. Anyway, so this is a really useful book, but
what year? When did you say that was
from? It doesn't say.
Oh, right.
I was looking. That's why I dropped it. I was looking to see what year it was, and it doesn't say. But what they add now is the green ratings. So if you look at the online versions, which everybody can, they're not secret. Everyone now can look up Firmenich and Givaudan, Simrise, and who else have I got downstairs? Some others. Cinerome. Look up their catalogues and see how they rate their materials as green. And for example, I am delighted to know that Cedrambra gets helicopter. It's not a film without a helicopter, is it?
It's true.
Cedrambra gets a tick for being from a green renewable source, and 5 out of 5 for biodegradable, which I'm very happy about because I use quite a lot. One thing I'm going to have to kick off.
What does that mean though? 5 out of 5. Does that mean that it breaks? That
it means
degrades?
Readily biodegradable.
So very quickly.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Whoosh.
Right.
It goes down as far as. Well, I didn't put anything on my list further than 2, which was biodegrades. Like, really takes its time though. So I went through their catalogue looking at, this is IFF's catalogue, looking at things that I would want to introduce, and also what can I do to replace things that I might be using that means that I'm not being a good ancestor. Roman. His name is Roman. The author. I'm getting now. I'm trying to get his surname eventually. Yeah. But Amber Extreme's off the list.
Why is that?
Not from a renewable source, and only gets 1 in the.
Wow. And Amber Extreme is basically all men's high street perfume.
There's a lot of Amber Extreme out there.
There's a lot of Amber Extreme.
Yeah. And
sometimes it hits you in the face on the tube.
It does. It actually runs up and smacks you.
It really does.
And it's not very nice.
No.
Not to be confused with, fortunately, Ambrox or Ambrox Super, which are 5 tick and 5, from a renewable source, and it's on this list. I don't think it's on this list. It's somebody else makes it.
So
that's it. I was up late last night working,
yeah,
and I haven't had whole coffee yet, and things are just dripping out of my brain.
It's okay. We're here to collect the drips.
Thank you.
So, do you know where the Ambrox Super? Do you know where that comes from?
Yes. I bought it from Let's think.
And I mean like manufacturing.
I know. Well, yes. Ambrox Super and Ambroxan and Cetalox are all the same basic chemical, really.
Mm-hmm.
It exists in nature. It's in clary sage and it's in ambergris.
Mm-hmm.
So every different company makes one that it sounds like that.
Right.
There's most of them make a brand. Ambrox Super itself comes from either. I think I just look in the books and see when it turns up. It's one of these. Thank you. That's. I'll turn the noise off. I should just look up Amber Extreme and then you cut out the bit where I waffle. Or you
I might just leave it in.
Leave it in because it's so embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing. There's an awful lot of stuff in the world to store in one's head.
Okay,
You don't need to.
No, it's if you can look it up, you don't need to store it in your head.
Exactly.
That's the law.
It's the golden rule of being a GP, isn't it?
You're probably right, and also, and you don't need to file it if somebody else has. Ambrox D. Aha! I think we're here. Well, Ambrox Super, it's from Firmenich.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Right, Ambrox Super is Firmenich. It had to be either Firmenich or IFF because I know where I got it from BLH and it doesn't matter. So, but yes, it is. It's a wonderful thing. And the reason I mention it is because sometimes people mix up things like Amber Extreme and Ambrox Super because it...
Oh, I just did that.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was talking about the one with the rating of 1.
Yeah, that's the horrible one, which is Amber Extreme. I say horrible. I shouldn't really say horrible. It's distinctive.
Yeah, I was talking about Amber Extreme.
Yes, you were, and that's the one that I'm going to have to cut out, which nobody minds.
No.
I'll find something else. Ambrox Super, much softer and quite powerful, but lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. I've got like 5 kilos of this.
Yes, I was mistaken. So Amber Extreme, why is that so bad? Do we know?
We've definitely already said this. This is the one.
Now we've moved on to Ambrox Super.
Now we've moved on to Ambrox Super, which is good.
See, this is an example of how people get mixed up between the two because now I'm completely lost.
This is a perfect example of how people get mixed up between the two. Right. Okay, so Amber Extreme is that really intensely woody amber.
Yeah. Someone punches you in the face.
Runs down the street and punches you in the face. Yes. Just like, or smacks you with a piece of ebony. It smacks you over the head with a clarinet. That's what's going on there. So Amber Extreme is in a lot of men's fragrances which will have brown packaging or even black. Johnny, not the brown. So that's it's and I'm quite relieved that I've got a good reason to have to replace it and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't put it in many things, but there's a tiny drop in a few things because it gives a little extra boost.
Yeah.
If you don't do too much with it.
You put a big drop in Teenage Boy's bedroom, didn't you?
I did. It's not. I just called it Teenage Boy. I think. It smelled like there's a little bit on the old Lynx.
Yes. Old-fashioned Lynx.
So Amber Extreme, yes, that is not so good on the general sustainability chart. And now we know that. Moving over to Ambrox Super. If you read about the two and just say, what do they smell of? It'll say, this one says, woody, musk, ambery. You probably read that Amber Extreme also says it's woody, musk, ambery. And people think that they're interchangeable. But they're completely, totally not. So Ambrox Super is much more gentle. And comes naturally from sperm whales, clary sage, and some beetle or other, apparently. So you have to check that the one that you get isn't the one made from beetles if you want to do vegan things. So we got into a whole other area of ethics there as well.
Is it Ambrox Super a version of close to ambergris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this particular molecule also exists naturally in ambergris.
And that's what I'm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So, superb stuff, and I'm very, very fond of it.
And what kind of effect does it have for your fragrance? Where would you place it?
It way down the bottom cloud.
Mm-hmm.
It makes things last forever. I mean, it's in Invisible Ben, and I believe that is the reason that you can smell the citrus in Invisible Ben for about 3 hours.
Yeah, you really can. Yeah.
So, I discovered that because I just thought, well, that smells nice. I'll lob it in because early days.
Yeah.
That I'm very, very pleased to know that having looked it up, I can now use this forever.
Yeah.
Quite happily use it forever. So you can look up the individual aroma chemicals and find out, should I be continuing to use it, or should I be swapping them out and seeing if I can replace them with something else that's going to be better long term.
Yeah.
So that's a project I have got going on at the moment. And some of mine I just might have to discontinue. Not have to, because I'm not bound to keep it under certain levels. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I might just go, no, can we just be better than this?
Yeah. What's it worth and what's it cost? And not in money. But
Yeah, no, exactly, not in money. What's it cost in all the other things that don't currently have a value, so they're being very much undervalued. Some are completely biodegradable, but from a petrochemical source.
Yeah.
So, although I think if we're going to use up oil, we're far better turning it into perfume materials and burning the bloody stuff and, heating the planet. So if we're going to use up some oil, let's at least make it into stuff that smells nice. But that's another thing. Some people refuse to use petrochemical synthetics because we are going to run out eventually.
Yes.
But if we stop burning the stuff, it'll go on for another million years, right?
Yes.
And it would be better for the planet anyway. But there's one here which is I use occasionally. It's called dulcinile. So that isn't from a green renewable source, but it's readily biodegradable. So what do I think about that? I'm going to have to decide.
Yes. What's it worth? What does it cost?
Mm-hmm. But then, how about we look at naturals? Because you think to yourself, well, naturals must be all from a green renewable source, surely.
Mm-hmm.
And biodegradable, yeah. But some of them are from questionable sources. Like, if you're not just looking at, did they grow out of the ground? Great. What state do they leave the ground in after you've taken them out? Can other things grow there? Like banana plantations. If you grow bananas in the ground, they grow once. You get one bunch of bananas. That tree will never produce another bunch of bananas. It's got to be pulled out, and you can't plant more bananas in that field.
Yeah.
So, is that a green renewable source? Not really. You have to keep digging up more rainforest in order to plant more bananas.
Yeah.
So, if it involves digging up primary forest, then you're onto the edge of whether or not that's actually renewable. And there's lots of places being dug up. It's like the palm oil problem. Cutting down rainforest to grow palm trees. Like, it's still a tree, but you've got monoculture and you ruin the environment. So, are you actually better off? Here we got citronellol. Tick for the green renewable source and readily biodegradable. Are we better than having citronellol, which is synthetic, rather than getting it out of citrus fruits in a place where somebody's just ploughed up a whole load of territory, got rid of all the animals and the biodiversity there just to grow some citrus fruits? Not so good.
But then what is the synthetic being made out? What's the raw material that they're extracting the synthetic from?
That's a good point.
Because then you've got to follow it back. Is that if that is
So I have some vanillin, and we've talked about vanilla, but it's got worse since we talked last, because Madagascar is now absolutely in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, they need instant, urgent aid at the moment. There's the government's gone bananas. People are just in such poverty,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the place where you get your lovely vanilla and your lovely rosewood.
Yeah.
And child labour and all kinds of horrendous stuff goes on. So maybe what you're better off doing is using synthetic vanillin, now produced in Norway, in the cleanest methods that they use.
So,
and probably pine trees is the answer to where does the material originally come from to make citronellol.
That's interesting.
Lots of things are developed from pinene from pine trees.
Wow.
But then some of the chemical processes are cleaner than others.
Yeah. Yes.
But some of the chemical processes used to make naturals are cleaner than others.
Mm-hmm. It's very complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
So for those people who might not have heard the vanilla stuff, do you want to just I think it'd be good.
Recap on vanilla.
Recap on vanilla, because I think it's very interesting.
So this is the book Natural by Alan Levinovitz, which is probably over there, but maybe not, which is a really excellent book. It's got a big green pear on the front being painted greener. And he did research into vanilla. It's actually being grown in Holland. So under big greenhouses, they've managed to grow it. And the Madagascar problem is that vanilla needs to be pollinated by very tiny hands. It can only grow naturally in Mexico, where there's a certain kind of bee that pollinates it. If you grow vanilla elsewhere around the world, you need people with tiny hands to pollinate them. And that has been the issue, because those people with tiny hands have generally been children.
Or Donald Trump.
Thank you.
Let's send him to a vanilla plantation.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The British. We can always take the mickey out of something serious.
Yeah.
But, so, there was the vanilla crisis, which was caused by people panicking over the fact that ice cream didn't contain real vanilla, which it hasn't done for about 100 years, you know. Except very posh ones. They've had vanillin since it was invented, and we've all had custard creams and bird's custard and all of those things flavoured with vanillin, not real natural vanilla. So it's like, oh, but I want vanilla in my ice cream. So the price of vanilla shot up from €3,000 a kilo to 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this money that could be made out of vanilla meant that some terrible people got into producing it. There were more people forced into working on it. The price went up. The profits made from it then went into illegal logging of rosewood from the Madagascan rainforests, which are protected, except not by people who don't look the other way. And people's vanilla bean harvests were being robbed. They set up their own vigilante groups and started cutting people's heads off if they caught them. The whole thing descended into complete disaster.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, but lovely natural rosewood and lovely natural vanilla. Let's not look. But if you look, you'll find it's not as romantic. I think part of the natural thing is like, oh, this is lovely and it's natural, and you can think of people in fields with sunshine and picking plants, and it's all lovely, and it's really actually quite horrible.
But actually, it's more like blood diamond.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look, I don't really want to look. It's like, well, you should.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it really, like, vanillin and vanilla really are no different. Not really.
Yeah. And then one of them is a little rich. People normally can't tell.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I've got some from before the crisis, which I'm eking out. And then when it runs out, I'm just going to go, you know what, that's it.
Yeah.
Until I can buy from the Dutch the new production.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
they probably won't turn into Vanilla Absolute anyway, but that's that.
Can we just
Yeah.
pause there? Hold that thought because I need to replace the battery. Okay, we're back on.
Yeah. Production of naturals, by the way. So one good thing about the big companies is that they have so much buying power that they can go out. I've said it before. They're buying chunks of rainforest so they can conserve it. Some of them are actually still family companies, and they want their company to be able to continue to do what it is that they do. They don't want to burn it out and disappear. It's sometimes, startups that just want to grow big very quickly and sell up and disappear and buy a Ferrari. I don't think they have the kind of forwards vision that the huge organisations have. And the big perfumery companies have gone, oh, blimey, we've got to make a difference. We can, and so we are. And I'd rather these days buy my naturals from the huge guys than try to get some sneaky bargain through somewhere. You don't know where they've been along the way. If I'm buying mine and they have Givaudan on the label and I get it through IES, I know that they have been very careful with the sourcing. We can't go out there and buy direct from the people that whose materials we're going to use, so we have to buy from people that we actually trust. And I was going to talk about Lush and the Lang Lang. Lush got to be large enough so that they could send their buying team to the actual source. And one place they went to the Comoros Islands where Lang Lang's grown. And they found that the people there were so poor, they were actually cutting down Lang Lang trees to burn them, to fire the stills, to do the distillation of the essential oil, which was sustainable for about another 3 months. And then they were going to starve. But they were so poor, people were beating them down in price so much that they couldn't afford fuel. So that's another thing. Distillation, it's pure, it's taken straight from the tree. But you need fuel to fire up the distillation. Yeah. Burning wood is a really bad idea. It's really highly polluting. It's banned in London. Yeah. All these blinking wood burning stoves all over the place. Back to nature. No. It releases too much moisture. I mean, who knew? So, the distillation process can be a lot cleaner. But you don't need a tiny little distillery in the middle of the forest. So anyway, they rescued them, provided them with other fuel so that they didn't have to cut down the Lang Lang trees. That's nice. But that is... And they go out and they look at lots of different places that they're buying direct to make sure that the things are genuinely... Because that's like the definition of sustainable. How long can we sustain this practice? Yeah. And if you're cutting down the trees that you need the flowers from... for not very long at all. And yet, natural. I'm sure I'm going to end up on too many, so many hate lists. I just don't get the romance of it when there are people's lives involved and pieces of land. Well, it is an interesting thing, given that everything is natural. Because your natural product has still been distilled, for example. You're not rubbing a tree on you. It's still going through a chemical process, and it's still being... So the term synthetic is also a problem, because that's also being made originally from natural things. Even if it's petrochemical, it's still natural. It was trees. It was a tree, a long time ago. Yeah. It's like people, for example, people, when they refer to nature, they refer to it as something other, but you are part of nature. You're not outside of nature, so everything is... fact,
they're
people
redundant.
talking about traffic. I'm stuck in traffic. No, you are the traffic.
You are the traffic. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You know, people talking about animals. You are an animal. You know. So all of these terms are, in my opinion, totally meaningless.
They can be taken and abused. They can be misunderstood, and they can be used to help sell stuff without actually solving the problem.
Yeah.
And if you start to say, well, we're working on trying to solve this problem, lots of people just go, la 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 la,
Yeah.
because it seems to be so big that it's too massive to take on as an individual.
Yeah.
But I think
it's so complicated.
And I know Lush used to get asked, oh, well, if you think it's so terrible to have, why don't you just go and live in the woods, and why do you make cosmetics? And the answer was, because at least we're doing it a bit better.
Yeah.
Less stuff, less packaging than other people are. It's an alternative, so it's a step. It's not from there to absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Packaging-wise, we're talking about 1/3 of all US landfill is cosmetics.
Wow.
You think of all the shower gel bottles in the
Wow.
world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
wow.
like thrown away lipstick and dye-set and stuff. Just all that stuff which is currently... So,
Wow.
you know, nice... Where's our cardboard boxes? Our lovely cardboard boxes around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Even the tins. You can recycle the tin.
Yeah. And the camera is currently stacked on lots of boxes.
The boxes, yeah. And, like I say, you know, will we fill the bottles? Can people be bothered to send them back to us? Some can.
Yeah.
But we will. But then it's like, ooh, lovely shiny packaging, and people forget in the moment, I think sometimes, all their lovely principles.
Yeah. Yes.
It can be a lot of asking.
I mean, it is not easy. It is not going to be easy to make everything better. It's going to take a lot of effort in every single choice that a person makes every single day. It is going to take effort to change and go against, like, the way of living that you've become so accustomed to.
Well, fortunately, I was kind of brought up in the 70s when we used to think about these things.
Yeah.
And I haven't forgotten them.
Yeah.
The first time I ever saw a graphic in the Observer that showed that one mini car uses up the same oxygen as 1,000 trees produce. Mm-hmm. And that's just like... Really. So, people who remember the first environmental movement in the 70s haven't forgotten this stuff.
Yeah.
But...
And this is why the way that you do it here is far better than... I mean, you could do it another way. It wouldn't be anywhere near as... Could
do. But there's always so much to try and do better. And when you suddenly discover, like, that one of the products that you use... so green renewable source, ISOE Super, such a relief. But it's not that biodegradable. But we don't use masses, and actually the regulations cover that. You know, so long as you use a small amount.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But I'm going through the lists. My lovely methyl iodine gamma, totally readily biodegradable, not currently from a green renewable source. So do I worry about it, or do I think, well, if we all stop burning oil, there'd be plenty of oil left for the perfume makers?
Yeah. So when it says not from a renewable source, it means petrochemical.
Yeah, it means that some petrochemicals have been used along the way in order to make it. Whether it's probably not totally, but yeah. That's generally what it means. But it doesn't mean that if you switch all to naturals that it helps. And there's some terrible ethical stuff going on in the way that people are treated and the way that land is treated in order to grow naturals, because we've been there before. Because people just, natural, better. So it must be greener, so it must be clean. Like, so going back to that article, which everyone, I'll put the link up there, from Indie Beauty. Independent Beauty? Anyway, it's a website, I'll put it up there. That... some people thinking that clean means 100% natural, I wouldn't touch anything else. Some people think it means organic, and others are going, it means sustainably sourced, and it's...
So some people prefer natural things not from the point of view that it is better for the planet, or like from the myth that it's better for the planet, or somehow better for the planet. But they favour naturals because they think it is in some way better for them.
Just better. We've talked about this, that better, but undefinably sort of better. It's just better. I don't want to have to think about it. It's just better. I think it's a romantic vision of nature. It's not about practicalities. Because if you then, if you go all nerd-like and sit down and go, well, actually, I think you find if you look at that, then this version of it that comes from that nice clean factory in Switzerland, because the Swiss don't have any sea, so they can't just, throw rubbish in the ocean. So the Swiss are naturally quite clean, in the way that they treat the environment, very strict about it. So if it comes from a Swiss source, they're probably going to be a bit more careful. Yeah. So if they come from a factory which is taking water out of a lake and putting it back cleaner, then is that not a little bit better than, say, somewhere that happens to just be in an island somewhere in the ocean where they've dug the whole lot up, thrown all the waste into the sea, and but it's natural. But if you get down, you drill down to those levels, you get people just like going, no, I don't like chemicals. I don't like chemicals, and it's nerd versus romance.
Yeah, and that ties into like wellness. This whole notion of wellness. Selling you a better version of you. That's what they do. That's what they.
I would then bring everyone back to Alan Lavinovich's book, because that has a really excellent chapter on how much people are prepared to pay for, say, spring water rather than tap water. It's like my water's better than my water has been shipped halfway across the globe from Norway in plastic bottles so that I can be purer. Now, get it out of the tap, get a filter.
Get yourself a filter. It's true.
Yeah. So, having taken the scenic route, as we normally do, I would like to say to perfumers, strongly consider looking up on Givaudan, IFF, and Firmenich, and Simrise and Taxacos and everyone else's website. Look for their green statements and see what they're doing, and choose materials on the basis that they are not doing harm.
And do you believe that you can have the answer is probably yes, have a fully formed and diverse collection of materials for in your perfume lab that are all responsible?
I do, and it might mean that I have to stop using a load of things. I'll use the ones that I've got, because now they're made. It would be stupid to try and pour them down the sink or something. Well, it's also illegal. I mean, I wouldn't. But there's no point going, that's what am I going to do? That's it's a terrible thing. I can't put it in my perfume. It's like, well, I own it. And now I know that it's not as good as I thought it was, environment-wise. So I'm going to use it.
Make some lovely things from it, at least.
Because it already exists. Make some lovely things, but not rebuy it. And if some perfumes have to go, then they've got to go. No one will die because they can't get one. Well, no, really, because
no,
it's not that important. We let it go.
I mean, it does. It does depend whether Midnight in the Palace Garden goes or not. Because if that goes, I think that might be. That might be curtains for me.
We'll find something. We'll find something to replace the Amber Extreme in Midnight.
Oh yeah, there's Amber Extreme in it, of course.
There probably is, but only a tiny amount, so it wouldn't ruin it.
Yeah.
But we've got to be Buddhist about these things, and not be attached to the things which aren't doing us any good.
There you go.
Life sorted.